Good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time and welcome to our Saving 103 class, where we'll be learning about saving towards a lump sum. So let us jump right into it. As normal, I will switch off my camera as I'm teaching, and then I'll switch back on my camera to take any questions for the participants to discuss any questions or queries they might have. Let's jump right into it. All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to be learning on our Savings 103, which is how to save towards a lump sum. Just a recap, what is the purpose of saving? Setting aside a portion of your income towards income or resources towards your future use, or rather than you spending it immediately, right? That's just the essence of what savings is. And then, of course, the characteristics of a lump sum saving, okay? Like a emergency fund that we recently learned about, if you're trying to save towards a lump sum, you would have to put aside monthly contributions to this lump sum. As I've previously said, even on the Money Matters group, not everybody is fortunate enough to have a lump sum of money stashed away. So some of us have to save towards this lump sum. And that is exactly what we're learning about today. So, firstly, looking at consistent monthly contributions, because in order for you to save towards this lump sum, you'd have to put monthly contributions aside. So, in terms of this money that you're trying to save towards. Then the second characteristic, of course, is limited access to the funds. So contrary to the emergency fund that we learned about in our previous class, this savings requires that you have limited access to the funds. This is also just to ensure that you're instilling discipline and you're not accessing the funds for what they're not meant to be used what they're not meant to be used for, right? And then the type of investment is very important, as you will see as we continue with the lesson. All right, consistent monthly contributions. So yes, it is important, of course, to first determine how much can you afford. And I keep reiterating this. How much can you afford is very important. So this means that you need to revisit your budget to try and figure out what your affordability is in order for you to identify the amount of money that you can commit towards this lump sum that you're trying to save towards. So your budget is always number one, guys, and I'll always continue preaching and talking about the budget because it's a very important tool when you're learning about managing or better managing your personal finances. Okay, so your budget is the first place to go for you to identify what your affordability is so that you can save towards this lump sum. Let us look at an example here, right? So here's Tim. He's a primary school teacher. He's earning a salary of 23,000 Rand a month, right? He does his monthly personal budget before his payday. And then, of course, he prepares and plans towards his financial goals. So what Tim is trying to do is trying to save towards a lump sum. Let's have a look at Tim's budget, all right? Here's Tim's budget. So he's got his breakdown of his expenses and then he's identified that he can actually save about 3,000 Rand towards this lump sum on a monthly basis, okay? So limited access to the funds. That was the second thing that was part of the characteristics. Okay, so selecting the right investment account is quite important. And then creating a monthly stop order. And I cannot stress this enough because remember that saving is not one of our best strengths, you know, as South Africans. So we're not known for saving, or we're not a saving nation. So one of the challenges that people face when it comes to saving money is that they lack the discipline. So for you to be able to be disciplined enough to try and save towards this lump sum, you need to create a stop order. All right. You need to create a stop order that is coming from your transactional account or the account that you get your primary salary or finances through. And then you transfer the money from that particular account into this special saving account that you're going to be saving towards a lump sum. And I will continue saying this. For you to instill discipline, I always advise that when you're opening an investment account. You rather open the investment account outside your primary bank. What does that mean? It means that if, for example, you're getting your salary and your debit orders being taken off, for example, at FNB, right? Then it means that you would rather open a investment account with all the other banks, be it Standard Bank, ABSA, Capitec, Time Bank. There's several other banks that you can be able to actually open your investment account. And why do you do this? You're trying to actually instill discipline because you're not transacting in that particular account. Therefore, having limited access to the account helps if you're going to be opening the account in a different bank, because you are already limiting access by yourself by opening the account in a different bank. Secondly, you are trying to instill discipline by opening a stop order that is going to do monthly transfers into that special account, all right? So all of these things are ways for you to ensure that you do not utilize the funds for what they are not meant to be used for, and you're instilling the discipline as you try to save towards a lump sum. Okay? And then, of course, the type of investment, right? As contrary to the emergency fund, where we said that you would need to have easy access when you're saving towards an emergency fund. Contrary to that, with a lump sum, we're trying to save toward this lump sum. So we don't want to be tempted to start utilizing the funds or accessing these funds for something that we're not meant to access these funds for. So what you do is that, of course, you will open the account in a separate bank, yes, and you will limit your access to this bank account. And then the second thing, of course, you look at the type of bank account, because limiting of access also speaks to what type of bank account you want to open, so that you don't have a situation where you are accessing the funds prematurely and you're not saving toward this particular lump sum. Okay. Let's look at this. So the type of investment accounts that you can consider opening. Okay. The first one, there's a 45-day notice, there's a 60-day notice, and there's a 90-day notice account. I still speak to the notice accounts because a notice account, we discussed this the other time, is that the notice account allows you to be able to make transfers, withdraw, and transfer into this particular account, right? And the reason we look at a 45-day, a 60-day, and a 90-day, it's because we want to limit access. So if we want to limit access, that means we want to have an account that does not allow us to easily access these funds. That is why we're looking at a 45 days, 60 days, and 90-day notice. And the notice account allows us to be able to make monthly, daily, or however many contributions towards this account. So it does not limit you in terms of how much you transact, in the sense that putting money into this particular account. So if we look at our example, so Tim opens a 90-day notice investment account, and he also creates a monthly stop order of 3,000 Rand, right? So Tim did his assessment, and then he came to realize that actually, for me to ensure that I don't utilize these funds, I will open a 90-day notice account at a bank that is not primary, that I'm not primary banked with, so that I can make sure that I limit my access to it. Then in order for me to ensure that I am making monthly contributions to this account without any form of temptations to utilize this 3,000 Rand, I will open a stop order at my primary bank to credit that investment account. And then, of course, to go a step further, guys, make sure that you don't have any access to that account, right? So don't have internet banking in that investment account. Don't have a transactional account card, right? Don't have a card linked to that account, because you don't want anything to tempt you into using the funds prematurely. So when you don't see what the account balance is, then you are less likely to actually utilize the funds. So make sure that you don't have any access to the funds. You just open the stop order on a monthly basis into crediting into the account, and then at least you look at the account maybe once a year at the end of the year to see how much you've accumulated. All right, this is all to speak to discipline, and which is part of the first lesson we had when we were talking about the reasons why people don't save, was the lack of discipline. So these are all the kind of things that you can do to try and discipline yourself and ensure that you're instilling discipline so that you cannot find yourself in a situation where you are where you find yourself in a situation where you are now utilizing the funds for what they are not meant to be used for, right? And then, of course, now that you've got the lump sum, right, look at what Tim has managed to achieve. After 12 months, he's been able to accumulate 36,000 Rand, right? Which is, of course, a lump sum that he has managed to save towards, right? So he can now transfer this 36,000 Rand from his 90 days notice account into a lump sum saving account, okay? And if we talk about this lump sum saving account, we look at maybe something like a fixed deposit. And I like talking about fixed deposits because they have preferential rates, and they've got other beautiful things that they offer you in order for you to work towards saving a lump sum, okay? So if we look at some of these features of a fixed deposit, firstly, you have no access to the funds until maturity. That's already number one tick. All right, and then the second one, you can fix the amount for a minimum of 7 days up to 10 years, all right? So we spoke about access to the funds and ensuring that you discipline yourself by managing the access to these funds so that you do not use the funds prematurely. So when you transfer the lump sum into a fixed deposit, making sure that you fix the funds for at least a minimum of 12 months in order for you to be able to get some form of preferential interest. The other nice thing I like about fixed deposits, your capital amount or capital investment is always guaranteed, right? A lot of people lose a lot of money by investing in money market accounts and other investment accounts that have fluctuating interest rates. And because their portfolios are not large enough to be able to withstand the change in interest rates, and they don't have the proper measures in terms of the hedging, and of course, they lose a lot of money. So if you're still starting out in terms of long-term investment and you don't have a lump sum and you're working towards building a lump sum, the fixed deposit's the best way for you to go, because your income, your initial balance, or your initial investment and your capital investment is always guaranteed. So rain or sunshine, your investment is always safe, right? Be it the interest rates go up, go down, whatever happens, that capital is always guaranteed, all right? So these are some of the things that you need to consider when we're looking at a fixed deposit, and why the fixed deposit is a best product to look at when you're now transferring the money that you've saved into this lump sum account so that you can work towards now building the lump sum. If we go back to our example, so if Tim opens a fixed deposit, remember guys, Tim has been saving for 12 months and he's managed to save 36,000 Rand, right? So as a result, he's now able to save 36,000 Rand, and he's now transferred that 36,000 Rand into a fixed deposit. And then the funds are then, and then he fixes the funds for 12 months. And of course, he gets preferential rates. And let's look at some of those preferential rates that are offered by fixed deposits in some of the financial institutions. And of course, these interest rates differ based on the bank, but this is a perfect example to just indicate to you what are the kind of interest rates that you get by fixing your money over 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and more. So looking at Tim's example, if he saves the money for 12 months, he could be potentially earning 6.85% on that money, right? Which is a good interest rate that he can be earning on that 36,000 Rand. So if I continue with this example, guys, and I say, look at Tim. And if Tim says he's been saving 3,000 Rand a month, after year one, Tim has managed to save 36,000 Rand, right? And then he transfers this 36,000 Rand into his fixed deposit. After year 2, Tim continues to save 3,000 Rand a month. And then that 36,000 after year 2, he transfers it into the fixed deposit. Can you see that his fixed deposit is now growing after year 2? He now has a 72,000 Rand balance. And this is excluding the interest rate, guys. This is just us talking about the money that Tim is being able to contribute towards his lump sum saving. Let's continue. So let's say Tim continues to save 3,000 Rand even in year 3, and that continues to be 36,000 Rand. And he then transfers this 36,000 Rand into his fixed deposit after year 3. Can you see that now his lump sum grows to 108,000 Rand, right, guys? Can you see that he is now growing an actual substantial amount of money in terms of a lump sum? Let's look at year 4. He continues saving, and that goes up to 144,000 Rand. So if Tim continues in this fashion, then it also then gives an indication that Tim will then continue saving towards a lump sum, right? And this is just a indication to everybody to understand that just because you don't have a lump sum of money that you inherited, won a lottery, or got some form of pension or investment payout, and you don't have a lump sum, it is fairly easy for you to start saving towards a lump sum, merely just by ensuring that you identify how much you can save on a monthly basis. Then, of course, you open a stop order that you're going to be saving into that particular investment account that is separate from your primary bank, and then making monthly contributions via a stop order into that particular investment account. And then after 12 months, you transfer that lump sum into another investment account known as a fixed deposit. And then, of course, after year 2, you do the same thing. After year 3, on and on and on. And the more you do that, the larger your lump sum saving grows and allows you to then be one of those fortunate people who has managed to save towards a lump sum of money. All right. And of course, this was a very nice short lesson regarding investments and saving, allowing us to be able to learn about saving towards a lump sum. So I will be taking any questions, if there are any questions that people would like to ask regarding lump sum saving. And of course, like I've been mentioning, unfortunately in South Africa, we're not a saving nation. So for you to be able to learn how to save towards a lump sum, be it for your retirement especially, this is the best way to go, by looking at your budget and identifying how much you can afford to save, then starting to save that amount of money in terms of contributions to a small investment account. Then after the 12 months, you transfer into a fixed deposit so that you can be able to see that amount of money grow and get more interest rates, of course. So if there's no questions, we will be posting this class on Facebook and on our YouTube channel so that you can catch up and learn more about your savings and how to save towards a lump sum. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye.